everybody. Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show, football edition on a Sunday night. How you doing, Eric?
Man, what a game. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Dude, I just love that football is back. I had the
Totally
jitters like I
back.
was back in high school,
I
but
know.
we are ready. Football is here, and we capped it off with a Sunday night classic game. But as always, everybody, I am the game injury doc, aka Dr. Evan Jeffries. On my right is Eric B. Mack. We are the host of the Hoops Rehab Show. This is the football edition on a Sunday night. The recap, the news, the drama, the injuries, all that stuff. We got you covered. You can find us at our YouTube page, the Hoops Rehab Show, as well as the Instagram page. And then after this live show, we will be uploading the pod. So if you missed this show, you want to listen to it on the way to work tomorrow, we got you covered. So wherever you get your podcasts, it's the Hoops Rehab Show. Please like, rate, comment, give us some ratings on the podcast, give us some ratings on YouTube. That'd be greatly appreciated. But we got you covered. And Eric, are you ready to get it cracking?
Let's do it. Let's do it. A lot of big games today, but damn, that nightcap was a way to cap it off for sure.
All right, so let's just start with Sunday night. I mean,
yeah,
when you saw this matchup going into it, you see Ravens Bills, and you know that's got to be the number one game of the week. And boy, did it live up to the hype. All right, what are your thoughts initially about the matchup, and then what you saw tonight?
Man, I was just about ready to get on here and just talk about like a overreaction of week one. I was already about to crown the Baltimore Ravens, champions. I mean, they just looked unstoppable. We have seen that in years past from them, so I guess it would have been jumping the gun a bit. But they just look so just unstoppable on offense. They had a 15-point lead late in the fourth. In most cases, that would be a done deal. But when you're facing a guy like Josh Allen in Buffalo, if there's some time on the clock, I mean, that guy's just ridiculous. Him and Lamar, they both are ridiculous. And obviously, I'm sure the two defenses feel like they have a lot to work on. And these are two defenses that relatively are usually pretty damn good. And so I know Buffalo's a little younger on that end these days, but off the bat, it was a crazy game, crazy finish. I thought when Buffalo didn't get that 2-point conversion, I thought it was probably a wrap because Buffalo did have 3 timeouts, but I'm like, man, Ravens are going to get a first down. Derrick Henry, a monster game, but that fumble that he had was huge, pretty much the difference in the game. And so, yeah, a lot to react with that one. Again, it's just one game, but in a tiebreaker situation or something like that, these two teams are going to be top of the AFC. So at this point, if there is a tie, Bills would hold that tiebreaker. And I think it'd be really important in terms of where that game is played if they do face each other in the playoffs.
First thing I did when the game ended was say, bring me my AFC championship game ASAP. Right? I mean, to me, that's going to be the matchup. My prediction for the Super Bowl was the Ravens. Your prediction for the Super Bowl was the Bills. And I feel like these two are the best teams right now in the league. And they have the top 2 quarterbacks in this league by far. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is a beast. He's the mini GOAT, whatever you want to call it. But right now, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are the best 2 quarterbacks in this league. Do you disagree with that, Eric?
Ooh, hot take. Hey, if there was a 1A, a 1B, a 1C, this is the closest thing to that you can get. I still got to give, Mahomes, just because of the hardware, right? He gets it done in the playoffs. But I do think what's going to drive one of these two teams is the fact that they haven't gone to the Super Bowl yet. I mean, that does mean something when you have kind of that drive, or that, something to kind of not that the Chiefs wouldn't want to get to the Super Bowl, but they've been there, done that. Right. But, we'll see. We know that when that January weather turns and Players get a little tight, kind of, which we have seen in the past from the Bills and the Ravens, and not much from the Chiefs. We'll see, but yeah, it's as close of a race to the best quarterback than I could ever imagine. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, they're the 3 top quarterbacks in this league, right? That is tier 1 by far, and I think
yeah,
there's a pretty significant drop after that, or at least another stage there, right? So I think
yeah,
they're definitely the tier 1, top of the mountain quarterbacks, and you're going to see at least one or probably both of them in the AFC Championship game. I don't think there's going to be one of the. I mean, if it wasn't one of those 3 teams in the AFC Championship game, that would be the biggest shock ever. But I would expect at least 2 of those 3 teams to be in the championship game.
yeah. And I would put big money Joe Burrow up there too, but he just has like games like he had today, right? It happens like a lot with them. Not a lot, but at least to open the season. So he's probably right there in terms of like big game. Just get me a touchdown down 5 with 2 minutes to go. But yeah, he's definitely, I think, at this point, just a notch below those guys.
For sure. And we don't want to overreact after week 1, but we have seen Lamar and Josh the past 5 years, many years of excellent quarterback play. So we know what we got in them. But if you guys have any comments on that, we are live on Twitter and YouTube. So please drop any comments, any questions. We have a section at the end of the show. We're going to answer any fantasy questions or any injury concerns or anything you want to say about your team. Let us know in the chat, and we'll get to it by the end of the show. All right, Eric. So I wanted to cover 2 other games that I thought were kind of important. One was probably like a matchup that wasn't like, I would say, the marquee matchup of the week, but to me, it was telling. And that was the Dolphins and the Colts. Eric, you doing all right over there? Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness. I know if you're listening to the pod later after this, you did not just see what Eric did right now.
I just crumpled up my Tua jersey. Yes, I do have a Tua jersey, Tagovailoa, and threw it almost into the bathroom.
Okay.
So it was a rough one. It was not only a rough one, which we're going to get into in a second, but it's just a sign. The signs have been there the last about year and a half or so, and it's come to a head. But yeah, it was a brutal one out there.
My question for you, Eric, and this is kind of a question going into the season. Do you think Mike McDaniels has lost the team, or at least lost his luster of being this offensive genius, mad scientist?
His out of everyone, and it's just the way it works in professional sports. He's got the hottest seat of all, because that's just the easiest thing you can do is let him go. And so I think he still has potential to be a kind of a offensive genius, but just being a head coach, I think he's lost his luster or his lore with his like silliness antics. Some of the things he would say in his press conferences or halftime interviews and things like that. I think that was like cute the first year. They were winning some games, right? They were high octane offense. I just think that since then, I would say basically, which I'm going to look up right now. Sorry, I'm going to look up something real quick. So in 2023, they were 9-3. Since then, so that year they kind of tanked towards the end of the year. Last year was, look, I know they were technically into the last game of the season last year. They were in the playoff hunt. But with Tua's injuries and just him not being able to throw the long ball, I think defenses have adjusted to what Miami was doing Mike McDaniel's first 2 years. They've really made Tua throw the ball. He's going to be precise. He's still going to be pretty accurate, but anything beyond 12 to 15 yards, like he's just not it. It's not in him. And when he can't throw little 3-4 yard routes to A-Chain or maybe Tyreek Hill, I mean, it doesn't look pretty. And you saw that today.
Yeah, I mean, he was 14 to 23 for 114 yards, averaging 5 yards a pass. Right, so he's dinking and dining. He's
same thing last year with them.
Really throwing the long ball, like you said, and he's kind of been known for that. And if things aren't clicking with that speed that they used to have, where it's just like quick, and then you can see the offense was just flowing so well, teams have discovered what they have done. Right, they have seen film over the last 2-3 years of Mike McDaniel's offense, and I think they have learned what he does well, and they have started to defend that. And I think it's making it very difficult, especially when you got a young athletic defense like the Colts. It's making it difficult for them to really make the next jump. And that brings me kind of to my last question with the Dolphins is Tua your guy?
Look, it was not all Tua today. I mean, he had like literally half a second to throw the ball. But how often are we going to say that? Like, that's something that's been said the last few years. Has he had some flashes? Yes, he has. Is he, seemed like a kind of a leader, a good guy, this and that? Yes. The only problem is they extended Tua last offseason. And so they're a bit stuck with him. I think personally that it's probably it with Tua. But what I mean by that is, if they get a high draft pick coming up this offseason, they're going to probably go quarterback. If they don't, then they may kind of be stuck with Tua another year, and they may be stuck with him anyways because of his contract. I mean, you know how it is in the NFL. It's just, you sign this big deal and there's no real business in just kind of outright waiving a player. I mean, he's not going to have any trade value with that contract, right? Unless there's just somebody out there that thinks that they can kind of fix him. So I know it was a long-winded answer, but I really do think it's a wrap, me personally. I just doesn't mean that it's like, okay, he's going to be benched next week. No, he's going to play out the year if he's healthy, maybe even next year. But I would imagine this offseason the Dolphins will be looking for the next quarterback.
So you're saying tank for Arch right now?
I was saying that earlier. For A, tank for Arch, right. Kind of like tank for Tua, but we'll see. It's just been an organization that's just had some tough times and could have drafted Justin Herbert. At the end of the day, though, would Justin Herbert have the success that he's had here in Miami? I don't know. It's a lot of things that come with that, but he's just obviously in terms of like raw talent, just better. I think we could all agree with that now, right? Yeah. And yeah, I know the Colts, right? They seem pretty solid. You picked them to win the division. I just think the Dolphins made them look a lot better than they actually are. But they're going to play good defense. They're going to be respectable at the quarterback position. Relax, everybody. I said respectable. Like, he's not going to go out and drop dimes. But it was a rough morning and day if you were a Miami Dolphins faithful.
Yeah. Most definitely. And if you guys are Dolphins fans, drop some comments. Let us know,
please,
what you think, what the future looks like. I did want to get in the Colts a little bit because going into the season, I thought that they made some interesting moves, and that division, in my opinion, was pretty much up for grabs when you got the likes of Tennessee, Jacksonville, and the Texans. And so my thing is, this is the first year that Shane Steichen could really choose a quarterback. And I know that they drafted Anthony Richardson, but from what I've heard about reports is that he wasn't the real, didn't really want him to be drafted. It was kind of more like the owner and GM, and they had kind of wanted to go with that type of quarterback. And that wasn't really what fit his system. And so you can see him. He's benched him. He's done different things. He's taken out of the lineup, and then finally this year he just said, "Hey, this is in training camp. We're going to fight for this position. And he chose Danny Dimes. And so far, it is obviously just one game, but he looked really, really good, right? He looked like the Danny Dimes of when the Giants were thinking they had their future. Obviously rushed for 2 TDs, which is pretty amazing, and had a TD passing. So 22 of 29 for 272 yards. And the other thing I liked about the Colts is they have a young offensive team, right? You got Jonathan Taylor at running back, you got Michael Pittman, and then you got the rookie Tyler Warren, who's probably going to be on pace to have like a Brock Bowers type of year. I wouldn't say he's going to get any of the records that Brock Bowers got, but he's going to probably be in the running for top tight end offensively for a rookie, obviously, and then kind of be in the running for rookie of the year there.
Yeah, they got some solid pieces. Obviously, the thing that's eluded them since Peyton Manning and I guess Andrew Luck left, or then Andrew Luck is a quarterback position. And so I think with Daniel Jones, one or two things that it's kind of big to me is he's no longer in the New York media, right? He can go on the Colts and just really not be, not have a ton of expectation. I'm sure locally there is, but he's not going to be in the limelight. He can just kind of go and pass for 200 yards and rush for 50 and throw a touchdown and, not make too many mistakes. And in the AFC the AFC South, that's going to be good enough to perhaps win a division. And so I think while they would have loved that their number 4 drafted quarterback would be the future, I think they are on the mindset that this is going to be kind of our bridge quarterback, Daniel Jones, maybe for a year or two, if all goes well, until they find the next guy.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's one thing I remember saying when we were kind of making our predictions before is Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones. And there's stories of redemption, and I think he fits that story, that mold, because of who his head coach is. Offensive mind, obviously great offensive coordinator. Yep. And I think just having that system in place with stars and young talent already there, I think you put an old vet in there, or not, I wouldn't say he's old, but put a veteran in there. I think you can produce a really good season and have a really good team. So that's my pick for the year, to have a pretty good year and a little bit of sleeper pick there. But yeah, it was a good game for them. Sucks for Dolphins fans. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah, it was tough. Yep. I mean, they'll be decent as long as Jonathan Taylor stays healthy, and Michael Pittman and those guys. I'm pretty sure they'll have a pretty decent season, and they'll be in the running for the division crown.
Yep. All right, so let's move to the third game we wanted to get to, and that is the Lions at the Packers. Wow. So that was one hell of a showing from the Green Bay Packers, in my opinion. I am a Packers fan. Besides that, I think they displayed their defense this year, which I think will be a lot better than it's been in the past. Obviously made the huge trade with Micah Parsons, and he already made an impact on his limited play there, even getting the sack towards the end of the game. But it also opened up all the other defenders, right? You have Rashawn Gary on the other side. You got Van Ness that comes in as well. So now they are able to kind of rush the passer at a different rate. And I think that will help their cornerbacks overall in the game. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a surprise. I mean, Detroit's kind of held their own against the Pack the last few years, and obviously won the division the last 2 years. And Packers, they came out firing. First possession they score. Detroit did kind of. I mean, it was a Detroit-ish style game. Time of possession was like 35 to 24 and change. The game went by really fast too, I noticed. But Green Bay was kind of like that bend but don't break style defense. So when the Detroit would get it into kind of Green Bay territory or the red zone, they would really tighten things up, and they really made it difficult, for the Lions, and then 4 for Jared Goff. And I think it's shown that if you kind of can get to Jared Goff a little bit, frustrate him some, he's kind of like one of those, like he's a really good quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but you can kind of get to him and get in his head a bit. I think that's kind of what happened there because he wasn't as fluid. And then Green Bay looked good. Yeah, they especially in the start, they were just going up and down the field to kind of get things going. And they're showing off their young receivers and their young tight end, and Josh Jacobs kind of doing his thing. He scored a touchdown in his 9th straight game today. So that's pretty impressive. He was kind of one of my guys that, when we had a fantasy show, kind of just does this thing. And he really, in second half of the games, just power back, really gets to the deep, to the defense at that point. And so, yeah, I would say for Green Bay and Green Bay fans, it was pretty damn important and pretty big victory today.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs has been Mr. Consistency, right?
Yeah,
since he got to the Packers, and just a solid back. I thought the big things for me with Detroit is they missed Ben Johnson. And I think losing your offensive coordinator, losing your defensive coordinator in one season is always going to be very difficult. Look back at the Eagles 2 years ago. Yes, they started 10-1 that season, but pretty much melted down like I've never seen a team melt down. And then the next year, when they kind of really got the coordinators that they wanted, they won the Super Bowl, right? So I didn't think they would go up from where they were last year. They were obviously an offensive juggernaut last year. One of the best teams in the NFL. I just don't think they were going to go to that same kind of position. And then the other thing is you just look at Jared Goff, right? He was 31 to 39, which if you told me that without telling me the yardage, it'd be pretty crazy. But he had 225 yards and only 5.8 average. And a lot of that was just a bunch of drop-offs to Jahmyr Gibbs, who had 10 receptions for 31 yards. Yes. Right? So if Green Bay is playing that style, that's going to just not allow you to go vertical and keep you down there, then I don't think Detroit's going to have a chance in a game like that, because that's their game. They got to get Amron going. They have to get Jameson Williams going. Look, Jameson Williams just got paid, $90 million, and he had 4 catches for 23 yards. So, that's your number 2 receiver, and you got to get more vertical out of him, which he is a huge vertical threat.
Yeah, kind of how we talked about with Miami. These NFL defenses are just too good to have like 12, 13, 14 play drives every time. Dink and dunk, 7-8 yards. It looks good sometimes, and you can kind of be successful in some cases that way. But it's just the odds of a mistake happening, and odds of maybe just spending all that time and just hitting the field goal, missing the field goal, turnover, right? They're going to need a little bit more explosiveness. Losing those coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are now head coaches, and it does happen when there's really good coordinators. Obviously, that's just the name of the business. Doesn't always happen for the two sides of the ball. But yeah, obviously a long season. I know Detroit is getting some health as the next couple weeks here on their line on both sides. So I anticipate them getting a little better as the season goes. But those division games are super important, and I think Green Bay showed that they are definitely team to be reckoned with, and I can see them, battling all the way kind of towards the end here.
Yeah, in the NFC, I think it's wide open, right? You have obviously the Eagles, but then after that, there's no real clear number 2, and I think that's where you'll find out in the NFC North where Detroit or Green Bay really stands there. To get a win early on against Detroit was pretty huge, and that could get you to that number 2 seed a lot easier than if you obviously lost game 1 there. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, let us know with the Packers and the Detroit Lions. But Eric, did you have something to say right there?
No, I was going to say, I know Packers are playing Washington coming up, so that's going to be a fun one, a big good game.
Thursday night, right? So they got a couple of days of rest, and they're going right into a Thursday night game, which will be pretty damn good to start off your your week 2 on Thursday night there.
I agree. It's going to be a fun one.
All right. So we now are going to get into what is always the worst part of football, especially from a fantasy perspective and for your team, is injuries. They unfortunately happen. I would say this was a relatively better Sunday where you didn't have these huge significant injuries where somebody's going out for like a huge period of time or out for the year, right? So I think there are some players that had some significant injuries that will impact them early on, but luckily we didn't see any too crazy of injuries. But let's get started. So George Kittle was probably one of the main players that went down today. He's obviously tied in for San Francisco Niners. And he went down with a hamstring injury and never really came back. You know, he caught the TD and then was blocking for Christian McCaffrey and kind of pulled up a little bit and went to the medical tent and then went to the locker room and then never really came back with pads, came back with regular clothes after that. So anytime we're talking about a hamstring injury, there's always a major concern because of how easily they can be aggravated, right? So even if you have a mild hamstring pull or a grade 1 strain, these are still injuries that need time to heal. And so they're going to do MRI to determine the severity. But like, for example, if they find out in the MRI it's a grade 1 strain, typically the healing time is 1 to 2 weeks with that. And then if it's grade 2, which means it's a partial tear, that usually takes about 3 to 6 weeks. And you got to be able to ramp back up because those are significantly easy to re-aggravate.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously unfortunate, and he's a big part of what San Francisco does. You saw that they did struggle quite a bit. They did win, but they struggled offensively with just kind of guys just going in and out of the lineup, or mainly going out. And so I know with it being a long season, I'm sure it's something they're not going to want to rush back, and then he comes back too early, and then he's out an extended period of time. But I mean, as you know, and as we all know, George Kittle is a big part of the 49ers DNA, you know, the last 7-8 years. And he's also a tough SOB. So I can see him being out there, you know, maybe not at 100%, but yeah, it's obviously kind of a fluky thing. And, you know, hopefully he'll be back out there soon for the Niners.
Yeah, and you know he's dealt with injuries throughout his seasons. He tends to miss somewhere on average about 4 to 6 games. Usually plays on average about 12 games a season. So there's usually something that he goes through. He usually plays through everything, no matter what. But the problem is with a hamstring injury, they're usually tough to play through. I'm not saying it's a strain yet, so he could get a clean MRI and it could be a day-to-day thing where it was more of just tightness that he felt. But even with that tightness, a lot of times it's almost like it's hidden a little bit because it becomes a little bit weaker, and then they come back too early, and then that's when they really strain the muscle. So I think they'll play it cautious depending on the MRI, but I would put his odds of playing next week at probably slim, in my opinion, just because it's a hamstring injury.
Yeah. We'll obviously get some more news as the week goes here, but yeah, I think they're going to probably be extra cautious with this one, you'd imagine.
Most definitely. All right, so that brings us to another tight end. So this was not a great day for tight ends, but the next one is Brock Bowers, who left the game with a knee injury. There were reports where he says he is fine. It was just more he got banged up, took a helmet to the knee. But when you kind of looked at the play, you know, he was on the sideline running, and he kind of got hit from the outside, which usually puts stress on the inside part of the knee. So that's when you start to think about the MCL typically, which is an inside ligament. And then you also worry about, depending on where his foot was placed, his meniscus. So I think out of a caution, they will probably, unless they did all the tests and he completely had no pain with them, they might do an MRI. But from what he says, he feels fine, but that doesn't always dictate the response or the injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did an MRI, just make sure it comes back clean so they're not putting him out there at risk.
Yeah, they probably should be a little cautious. We'll see kind of what is said, because he's a huge part. Speaking of obviously another tight end, part of what the Raiders are trying to do, and most likely their most explosive offensive player, and so they're going to need him 100%.
Yeah, but he was already having a great day, kind of leaving
I
off
know,
what he did last season. So
usual.
you know that he's the number one option there at receiver. I mean, he's a tight end, but at receiver pretty much.
Yeah.
And you know he's going to have a great season. We just got to make sure his knee is good. But I'm a little obviously more optimistic on Bowers than I am on Kittle.
Absolutely. Yeah. It looks like it. He kind of caught a break there, and we'll just see if he's out at least a week or so, or I'm sure we'll kind of see as far as that goes. The week with practice and all that, if he's out there or not.
For sure. All right, so going back to San Francisco and Juwan
brutal.
Jennings, who pretty much missed all of training camp because of a calf strain. He left the game with a shoulder injury. And from the likes of it, it didn't sound too positive, but they are getting an MRI, so it's hard to determine what the injury actually was. And so once they kind of determine the MRI, that'll kind of dictate the course of how long he might be out, if there's something positive in it, or it's something that is day to day because it came back clean. So you hope it is that day to day option, and he's already missed most of the training camp, so he's just trying to get his feet under him. And already alone, you got Kittle and him that are banged up. You had Christian McCaffrey going into this game, which we didn't really know how he was going to get into it or how he was going to feel. And then you obviously don't have Ayuk, and you just have a lot of players that are kind of out offensively for the Niners. So,
yeah, I mean, if you said, hey, the Niners are not going to have, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, obviously Kittle. I was going to say Kerry Kittle, and then Debo, obviously Samuel, who's no longer on the Niners, on the Commanders. It's kind of a new age, and so it's going to be tough if they're without all those guys. I mean, we know Ayuk's not going to come back for some time. But geez, it's pretty imperative that Christian McCaffrey stays healthy.
yeah, and they still won the game, right? They won 17-13 against the Seahawks. And one of the things I thought they would be better at is obviously defense, even though they've lost players, but they added Robert Saleh. Again,
Saleh's back,
right?
yeah.
So he's the defensive coordinator. Who's been such a great defensive coach. And I think just adding him back and installing the same system that he's had, I think will get these players playing pretty well.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of the guys they lost, they were like household names, but they were really kind of towards the back end of their careers, and so they got some young guys that are up and coming now, and so I think, like you said, with Robert Saleh, and if we were talking about like one of the more impressive wins this week, I would say Niners. Not so much how they looked, but that they just pulled out that victory. It's never easy to win at Seattle, and barring any more injuries, they're obviously going to be there, kind of down the stretch too. So we'll see. Hopefully they all stay healthy there in San Fran.
Yes, for sure. All right. So that brings me to the next player. And this was something that happened on Friday night.
Yep.
It was Xavier Worthy, who was basically taken out by Travis Kelce on accident, but he dislocated his shoulder. So those are always super concerning. They haven't really put a timeline on him, and they also said that he's getting a second opinion. More than likely, he's getting a second opinion on whether or not he needs surgery. So just to break down what a dislocated shoulder, what happens with that, a lot of times when, say, this is your humeral head that goes into the socket here, if it dislocates, you can see how it hits my palm right there, and this would be the head hitting that, and that can cause what we call basically a Hill sac lesion, and also can tear your labrum in there. And so instantly you have this instability in the shoulder joint, right? So it's like if he were to rush back and come back right away, that thing could dislocate very easily because the ligaments have been stretched, the joint capsule has been stretched. So a lot of times the concern is, does he have a torn labrum? Does he have a Hill-Sachs lesion? Or does he have any other fracture in the acetabulum, which is basically right here in the socket, or the humeral head? So those are the main things they haven't said at all. And I think that's what he's seeking, whether or not he can play through this type of injury. I still think he's going to be out. In my opinion, he's going to be out at least a minimum of 4 weeks, at least a month, to allow that joint to heal up. And then he would probably still have to play with like some sort of padding or some sort of brace. But the big problem is just him being able to extend over his head, him landing on his shoulder if he needs to, or him taking a tackle. So those are like concerning things for somebody that has a dislocated shoulder.
Man, last year, Pat Mahomes took out Rashee Rice. And this time Travis Kelce taking out his teammate as well. So it's just pretty kind of fluky and freak accidents. So that's pretty crazy. And so I assume if there's some kind of, if he needs to go under the knife or some kind of surgical repair, he would probably be out for some time. I would take it.
He would be out for the year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. It's more like, is this something that I can truly play through? Which
manageable.
He probably could if he allows it to heal. Is it something that's going to put him at risk for further injury, like ruin his career? Then there's something that he might need immediate surgery. And then just in general, this is something, if he does have a torn labrum, if he does have what we were talking about, he might have to at least have surgery on the off season, which is usually like a 4 to 6 month recovery time period. So that would give him enough time in the off season to do the surgery and come back fully healthy in the next season. So I think that's all the things that they are considering. But we do know it's dislocated. We just don't know what the damage was inside the joint.
So I'd imagine, we would anticipate he's going to at least be out the next 4 weeks, and then we'll just see what they decide to, or the route they decide to take with him. In terms of this year and going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a tough break. I mean, obviously he's one of the young receivers, and they obviously have Rashee Rice that's already out for 6 games. So it's not a good time to have somebody out right now, but that's part of the game right there.
Yep. It's tough. It's a tough one. There's, I think we hope it's not terrible, but we know every week we're going to have a few of these that we're going to talk about. And so,
for sure,
like you said, today was at least it's easy for us to say that it was a decent day, but nothing catastrophic, it looks like.
Yep. All right. So a lot of shoulder injuries for these receivers. Another young stud in Atlanta, Drake London, left today's game with a shoulder injury. They have diagnosed it with as a shoulder sprain, and he's day to day. So to put a little bit of team speak, coach speak, that means he likely at least has a grade 1 sprain, which is typically that 1 to 2 weeks of healing time frame. So that would make the day to day, right? So if he had a grade 2, which would be partial tear of those ligaments, likely you would have heard like this could be like a multi-week absence. However, even like with those type of shoulder sprains, depending on which ligaments it is, those are things that he possibly could play through depending on the pain. Like, can he elevate his arm above his head? Does it hurt to reach? Things like that. So the good news is they said day to day. I just would keep checking throughout the week to see what his update on his status is going into next week. Do they put him at questionable or doubtful? Then that means more than likely he probably has more of a significant injury, or at least it could be falling in then that grade 1 to grade 2 type of sprain.
Yeah, I think there's a difference. Obviously, if he's healthy, he's going to play, but we'll see if it's if all these guys, if they're effective, if they come back too, because that's the last thing you need is just to kind of re-aggravate something. And so the good thing that a lot of these guys have is time. And so even if you missed a couple weeks, albeit I know it's tough as a fan because you're like, man, you want to win every game. And you don't want to get in any kind of hole or anything, but with it being a 17-game season now, I think it'd be in the best interest to make sure that they're as close to 100% as possible before coming back.
Oh yeah, 100% with that. All right, and the last guy I kind of wanted to go over is Christian McCaffrey, because he had such a interesting weekend per se. He kind of pulled up lame with one of the practices, and then he was kind of limited in practice, and then he didn't practice on Friday, right? So there's a lot of questions going into Sunday about his calf, and then obviously he dealt with a calf injury last year, which led to more of the bilateral, both sides, tendonitis of the Achilles. And then ultimately he went down with a knee injury when he came back from that. So there's a lot of concern going into week one. He was ruled eligible to play today. So that means he was good enough and he felt good enough to play. And for the most part, he looked fine out there. There wasn't like I don't think... Yeah, there was times where he showed explosiveness, and there's times where he didn't show it as much as a runner, but as a pass catcher, he did, and that's what he always does, which obviously he's able to provide a lot of value for a 49ers team that is depleted from injuries. And like you said, they need McCaffrey to be there and be present.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big part of the offense, 31 opportunities with the ball with 22 carries, 9 catches. So he obviously had like a full workload. The average was kind of low in terms of like per rush, but I know Seattle's pretty good up front, and so that could have to do with it, along with the Niners not having anybody to throw to other than Pearsall at this point. But yeah, I hope he stays healthy because they're going to need him, and I know fantasy owners are going to always be on pins and needles with him, and so. At least he had, especially if you're a PPR league, a decent day out there today.
That's for sure. All right, guys. So that wraps up our injury section. If you have any comments on any other injuries that I may have missed, or you have any fantasy questions, please put them in right now, and we'll get to them at the end of the show. Just go ahead and, if you're live on Twitter or if you're live on YouTube, go ahead and hit the chat. Hit some questions and we'll try to answer them. And also, if you are live right now on YouTube, please subscribe. And then on Twitter, go ahead and follow at the Gameinjurydoc and Eric B. Mack on our Twitter handles, because we're always tweeting out things throughout every Sunday to allow you guys to understand what's going on with the game. All right, Eric.
Yes, sir.
You ready for our new little section here?
Yeah, segment. I like it.
Fantasy studs and duds. All right, Eric. I want you to go first and give me your fantasy studs.
So I'm going to give you 3. And with this, I'll preface this by saying, I know there's going to be ups and downs, highs and lows, but the 3 guys that I kind of picked, and there's other ones too, is that I see a trajectory kind of up for them going forward. So I'll just go right off the bat. He had a huge fumble tonight, but I'm going to go with just old faithful Derrick Henry. Look, I feel it's like basically like every season now where you're like, was his last year? Was this the last big year that he's had? I mean, he's obviously getting up there now in age. He's been doing it for so long. He's taken probably such a beating, even though he's huge. And he is picked high, but he's not picked, top 5 or top 7 or anything like that. Typically it's usually maybe like early second round, end of the first round. And so, man, you give me 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's not going to catch a lot of balls. It's just not what he does, but he did get 1 for 13. I think if you got a guy like him, I think he's just always just going to have an opportunity to just have some huge games, especially on a team like Baltimore. You always got to think about what team they're on as well. And that is a team that's going to be scoring a lot, and he's going to be a big part of that. Another one is a guy that's probably in a lot of waiver wires in terms of quarterbacks. Or maybe he was picked very late. Justin Herbert, man, he was slicing and dicing. International incident in Brazil. He had a you know what I mean. He had a real nice game. He's had some decent fantasy years, but he's also had not such decent fantasy years, and I think that's why he's just not really seen as a top kind of guy. But hey, 300 yards plus, 3 touchdowns, carried the ball 7 times for 32 yards. It could be somebody that you're probably not going to start him next week, but I would grab him in case your quarterback gets hurt, in case you picked up somebody that maybe doesn't do as good as you thought they would. It is somebody to keep an eye on for sure. And then finally, somebody that, I mean, if you looked at his stats, it doesn't really scream out anything, but Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm kind of basing it on last year for, his rookie season. He had flashes, but it wasn't just an amazing season. And I'm kind of with this. I watched a lot of that game, and I'm just kind of going with the eye test. Kyler Murray looks at him a lot. I think he's going to be a great red zone player. I think Arizona is going to surprise some people and be pretty decent. And that's going to be with kind of Marvin Harrison leading the way on the receiving side. So I look for him to have a lot better year than he had last year.
Yeah, those are great picks. I mean, obviously with Derrick Henry, Mr. Consistency, 30 years old, size and speed. I just don't understand how fast he is when he takes off after that. Like that 10-yard, gets to 10 yards, gets to 20, and he is just gone. Right. So he's going to be a stud all season long. Herbert, we talked about it. What do the Chargers need to do? Pass the damn ball. And
slang
if you use
that
Herbert, yeah, that's what I remember you saying, slang that thing. So if you use Herbert like he should be, I think he could potentially be a top QB1 in fantasy if he continues that way. Right. And yeah, Marvin Harrison, at least he showed where he is on the pecking order on the obviously Arizona and kind of coming off that rookie year. So great picks there, Eric. I got mine. I got 3, obviously. And to me, I have 2 rookies on there because you weren't positive yet where they stand, where they're going to be on the team. And that number 1 for me is Emeka Egbuka. And what I wanted to see is just, is the hype really there? Like, is he going to be that impact player? And obviously they have Chris Godwin, who is out. You have Mike Evans on the other end, who's just always Mr. Consistency. He's going to get 1,000 yards. You got an explosive offense with Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving. So you're kind of just trying to see where he's going to land. And boy, did he impress. I mean, he was currently going into Monday night. He is the top 4 receiver of the week. Wow. He had 67 yards, 2 TDs, 23.6 fantasy points in. Well, if you count the ESPN points, PPR leagues, that's where he would be. So I think he showed why he was drafted, why he's a stud, and I like his ceiling going forward, even if Godwin comes back. And the reports coming out this weekend is that Godwin's probably not going to be back to about week 7, 8 because he had a second surgery to tighten his screws in the ankle, which is kind of concerning that wasn't something that was talked about. He was left off the IR because there was hope that he would be back in October, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be likely. So that means it's going to be a Emeka's show right now. My second guy is a guy that you were, again, kind of, let's see, like you weren't really positive who he would be on the team, and that's Ricky Parcell, right? Because you're like, all right, could he be a number 1 receiver? And in my opinion, he could be, especially with all the injuries going on in San Fran. And they need somebody to throw to. So the fact that he got 108 yards today was pretty impressive there. And I think just moving forward, the uncertainty of Jennings, like we already talked about, as far as the injury, I still feel there's uncertainty with Christian McCaffrey because of his history. Obviously, Kittle possibly being out, this could be a player that you can plug and play the next couple of weeks, and I think that could be a difference in for your fantasy team kind of moving forward there. And then lastly, I got my man JCM. What's that stand for?
JCM. JCM.
Ja'Cory
Merritt.
Okay. Now going into the season, it was they traded away Brian Robinson, but you
Absolutely
did not understand what the pecking order would be. There's a lot of hype around him, but you had the likes of Eckler, obviously. You had the likes of Gonzalez that they were talking about, Rodriguez, Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Christian Gonzalez. Rodriguez, and then you obviously had Mickles in there too, right? So then you're like, I don't really know what the pecking order was, but then once you find out that Rodriguez was not going to play, and so you're like, all right, let's see what this guy's got, and he did not disappoint. He had 10 carries for 82 yards and a TD. So I think overall you kind of know that they saw a lot in him as a rookie. And for them to trade Brian Robinson away, I think that meant a lot.
Yeah, those are some good guys. I mean, good options there. Good. What I like about them, they're all young and they're all going to get a lot of opportunity. It looks like coming up here, whether it just be it's their time or they got other guys on their team injured. Obviously with JCM, he wasn't this top. I think he was picked in the 7th round, right? So it's not like he was going to be guaranteed to make the team at all. And so just the fact that he made the team and he led the team in carries today, that shows that there's something there. And so we know Washington's, I think they're going to be putting up some points this year. So yeah, I like those guys. I think definitely Emeka is going to be, a flat out stud for sure. Pearsall is just going to depend on if he's going to get some touchdowns and things, but hey, he's basically their number one right now. So, I think all those 3 guys have tremendous upside going forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's get to our top 3 fantasy duds. I'll start off with mine, Eric. Since you went first with.
Let's hear him. Who you got?
You really don't want to hear these.
Whole Dolphins team? No, I'm kidding.
No, I didn't even go there. I got the New York Giants on this list. Very heavy right now. I'm just going to put Tyrone Tracy Jr. and the rest of whatever running backs they have on that team.
Backfield, huh?
Just the backfield in general. Tyrone Tracy rushed 10 times for 24 yards. Cam, I don't even want to get into Scattaboo. He had 2 carries for -3. At that point, you just weren't.
This ain't Arizona State.
Yeah, you weren't doing anything on offense. They just looked poorish on offense. It was a very bad showing for the Giants. So we may as well just get straight into it. Russell Wilson was awful.
Yeah,
and that's my number 2. I don't even need to say it, but that's my number 2 guy. Russell Wilson was flat out awful. He was so bad that Brian Daboll said he doesn't know if he's going to start next week. When you have a quarterback that you've said this is going to be your quarterback, you said it all off season. This is going to be your starting quarterback. That's how bad a showing he had. I don't even need to get into stats. I don't need to get into any of that. But Russell Wilson was flat out awful on Sunday.
17 for 37. I'll get into the stats. Okay. Yuck.
Yeah. It is Jackson Dart time. You best believe it. He had a huge preseason. There ain't no way that Giants fans are going to let Russell Wilson go out there for another week and do this. So if Brian Daboll is smart and Brian Daboll wants to save his job because there's damn sure he's on the hot seat, he better start Jackson Dart in week 2.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, obviously Super Bowl champion. He had a lot of really, really solid years, but the last few have been rough. And it's just I don't know if it's just out of respect. They obviously signed him, and he probably was told he was going to compete for a starting job. And so sometimes just the vet gets the job. And I think I thought we were even looking at it like, hey, maybe it's going to be by week 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. But yeah, it looks like it might be as quick as week 2. And you're right. If you're on the hot seat, are you going to really waste 6 games going 1-5 and then going to the young guy and just him getting killed out there? So yeah, I would do it ASAP.
Yeah, and you can tell, but that's what he said. I mean, it's at this point he needs to try to save his job, and he's going to go with the guy that he drafted. So it'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the week, but that was not a good showing. So let's get off the New York kind of whatever showing that they had, and I'll go with my third guy because him and his team had a lot of hype going into the season, and that is Bo Nix. He did disappointed. I mean, it wasn't a good showing. They still got the win, which is the most important thing because they have the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bo, I need you to do better. You obviously had a great rookie year, but 1 TD and 2 interceptions is not going to get it done. But I don't doubt that he'll be able to get it going. This is not a Russell Wilson situation, and I know he'll get it going in the weeks to come because they still have all that offensive talent there. I think that as the weeks keep churning, you'll see a lot of good numbers out of Bo Nix moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a hype train with Denver, and they won at the end of the day, so that's all that matters. But yeah, they're going to really lean on their top-ranked defense. They were number 1 ranked last year and got better this year. And so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully he'll be able to put some decent numbers to kind of him be a starter for you out there in the fantasy football world. But yeah, I probably would want to see it, before it actually before I put him out there again. They play the Colts next week. Actually, I was just looking at it. So that'll be interesting to see at Colts. We'll see if the Indianapolis can kind of do what they did to Miami, to Denver next week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Nick, what are your duds?
Yeah, I'm just going to go straight up. I'm, kind of looking at players that were, drafted relatively high. Nico Collins from the Texans. And, when I pick guys, I'm picking guys where I understand there's going to be bad weeks, it's going to happen, but the Texans just looked really bad on offense, and that's a concern. So what did he have? He had 3 catches for 25 yards. And so again, those games happen, even to the best of them, but I don't see Houston being as good as they have been as of late, the last couple years. They only scored 9 points. So I'd be a little concerned about him because he was drafted pretty high regularly in a lot of drafts. And so he's got talent. But yeah, I would say he was a big dud today. I'm going to go all the way back to Thursday, first game of the season, AJ Brown. We've talked about him. I know it was nasty. He got his first catch, basically towards the end of the game. We'll see. He's going to probably, when it's all said and done, as long as he's healthy, he's going to have those monster games. You just hope that when he doesn't have a monster game, that he at least has a respectable game. If you're PPR, right, you might want, 5-6 grabs, 60, 70 yards, but sometimes he just kind of disappears and he's not happy. Even with them winning, he's still going to be upset. So he's the second one. And then the other one, look, he's not a, first, second round, maybe even third round pick, but I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker III. Now, in most drafts that I looked at, he was actually the first Seattle running back picked, and he's had a pretty solid career as long as he's been when he's been healthy. He's been getting those goal line carries. He's had some pretty good games. But I was looking at it today, and it makes you think: is Zach Charbonnet, is he the number 1 back there? He had more carries today. He had more success. When Seattle got down to the 3 or 4 yard line, they gave it to him a couple times. He ended up scoring, cashing in. So that is why I have him as a dud. Not that he just did. He did do pretty awful. 10 carries for 20 yards. That is pretty bad. But not only that, but is he now second in command there at the running back position? So that's something to think about heading into next week.
Yeah, for sure. Those are some definitely good points. I almost put the whole Houston team on notes as well, just because I don't know what happened to Houston's offense the last year and a game, right? They just have gone from this like amazing offense to just nothing, and you can see it with today's game as well. So yeah, those are some good ones, Eric. Not to say that these players can't really turn it around. They can. It's the NFL. This happens. But this was just week 1 matchup there.
Yeah. Right. Bit of cause for concern, but doesn't mean you're going to go and waive him or anything. You're just going to kind of keep an eye out for it. For
sure. So since we didn't get any comments on kind of like fantasy injury questions, Eric, is there anything out there that you want to ask?
Ooh, let's see. Let me think. Injury wise, anything? I mean, for me, I know AJ Brown, right? He was kind of coming in a little bit hampered by a hamstring, right? Do you think like a game like the one he had, could that have anything to do with his kind of disappointment, or do you think it was just one of those bad nights?
I think that's part of it in a way, just because he missed some time, right? Like he was still not, he was kind of getting his feet wet. But I also think that's just by design. Like Philly's going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball with Saquon. They're going to run the ball with Jalen Hurts. And so I think he's going to have games where he has like 1 or 2 catches, and they're going to win. And so I didn't have him like in my top wide receiver ones to begin the season because of that. Like just not that type of offense to always have games where he's having 100 and some yards each game.
Yeah, no, I guess it's him being boomer bust is kind of typical. So it just, hopefully health doesn't play a part as well.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, almost 1 week down. We got one more game left tomorrow night, obviously. So it's pretty exciting that football is back. That's for sure.
Yep. All right, guys. So that pretty much wraps up our Sunday night show, football edition of the Hoops Rehab Show.
Yes, sir.
We will be here every Sunday night to kind of recap the day and also break down the injuries that happen and some of the fantasy perspective. So please, if you like this, give us some comments, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow the pod and rate that as well. So we will see you here every Sunday to talk about football. We also will be on Tuesday and Thursday to kind of recap anything that happens during the week, especially during football season. And we'll be back soon. Eric, got any last words?
No, sir. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we will catch you guys coming up soon.
Yep. All right, guys. For the Hoops Rehab team, we are out. Great to have football back. Peace out, guys.
Yes, sir. Peace.